And a good morning to you. Welcome inside the Bottom Line. Frosty, not quite frosty this morning, not like Frosty the Snowman frosty. It is 33 degrees here at our studios. Glad to have you in here day before Thanksgiving. I'm going to go straight to the phones. We haven't had him on in a while, and I've missed him. I'm glad to get him on. See Jamal Horton. Jamal, thanks for joining us.
What's up, Lanny, my man?
How we doing, bud?
Hey, man. Good to talk to you. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas. Happy
All of
Kwanzaa.
those things. Yeah.
All of it, man. Always that time of year, man. But now I'm doing well.
Good.
I'm doing well. I'm blessed.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Everybody in the family doing well?
Yeah, man. We're at that time of year where we're just trying to get it all together.
Nope,
And,
I can
be as
understand
close as
that.
possible.
Yeah, I can understand that. You wrote an article, and it was related to right here in Maiden. Mount Pleasant came up here and played, I think, second round, I believe it was. And then a young man had a health scare after that, and you wrote an article about it. Kind of update us on that.
Yeah, it's a 10th grader, a defensive lineman named Tylen McDowell. And Tylen, a day after the game, which Maiden won handedly, he passed out. He was unconscious at his girlfriend's house that next night. And at the time, his parents thought maybe, it could have been something as serious as a concussion. Father thought maybe he was dehydrated or something from the game, but just, their minds didn't go to where it ultimately was, and that was a stroke for a 16-year-old, otherwise healthy athlete. And so it put quite a scare, of course, into his parents and the whole city of our town, of Mount Pleasant. And everyone just kind of, came together and rallied around, this young man and his family. And, he's made quick strides in terms of his recovery. He certainly isn't all the way recovered. He has a long road ahead. But, during that time, I left out that they, of course, discovered he had a blood clot on his brain, so he had to have emergency brain surgery that same night, about 4 o'clock in the morning. And, all indications that, he's on that road, the healthy road to recovery. He started taking steps the day after. Has been undergoing rehabilitation. And, all signs look good, but you never know because something like strokes is certainly dangerous, especially, just so rare for a 16-year-old.
Yeah. Any idea where the blood clot may have come from?
Well, doctors aren't sure, so they aren't, necessarily saying it happened because of this or that, but his parents said that they said it was related to trauma, and the only thing he can go back to was a really hard hit that his son took during the game. I guess during the game his helmet, he got hit so hard or hit someone so hard that his helmet kind of turned to the side. And so he was looking at a part of the helmet that one normally isn't supposed to. But, there were no, major signs like, during the game or right after the game that something was amiss. And it didn't. And, the fear that it didn't reveal itself until about 24 hours later when he was at his girlfriend's house and just all of a sudden he wasn't saying anything. He was passed out on the floor, and they had to rush him to the hospital. Wow.
That's a scary time, but I'm glad he's doing better. And you don't know about the stroke thing. You may have seen it on Facebook. They had thought that I had one a couple weeks ago, and I've been through the MRIs and all of the things, the heart monitors, all those type things. Nothing has shown up. They saw a little spot in my brain that the radiologist reading the MRI could not definitively say if it was something that was new, something that had been there. And after meeting with the neurologist and being through all the tests, and I just finished a sleep study about a week and a half ago now, waiting on results on that. She thinks it was a sleep episode and not a stroke. And I was talking to a good friend of mine who went into the Lincoln County Sports Hall of Fame. We coached together at West Lincoln. He's former head coach up there. And we were talking about it. And when I was telling him the story and explaining everything, and he said, well, do you think it could have been caused from a concussion from years ago, what they saw in your brain? And it never occurred to me, and nobody asked me that question.
Wow.
But it could have very easily been. That could be a spot that was there or caused from having, quote unquote, your bell rung back in the day that you didn't think about. And it could very easily be related to that. And you just don't know because you didn't look at things like that way back in the day. But it's a scary thing, and I followed up on it. I told my wife, I said, if I were 42, I'd probably go ahead and just sleep on through the night. But 62, I'll take an ambulance ride and let them check everything out. So it can be a scary thing, and stroke is one of those that you don't get a whole lot of warning with that. It just kind of happens. But none of my medical numbers or anything like that lend itself to that because of don't really take any medications. Now they got me on blood thinners and I freeze to death, but that's all more precautionary than anything else. And this young man will have to kind of go through the same thing. And I know it's early to say, has anybody said anything about what his future may hold in athletics?
Yeah, well, doctors haven't speculated at this point. His family has, I did ask that question about, how they would feel about if doctors did give him the clearance about him playing. And, his father said, I'm okay with him not playing. Tylen is a big boy, 6'3", 230 pounds at 16. And he appears to have a bright future. He's a starter. Well, he was in the rotation for a really good Mount Pleasant football team, and he also wrestles. But at this point, I did not talk to Tylen, but his parents are ready for him to let it go. At least his dad is. His mom, she's a little more that I know that that's his passion, and I know that might be what he wants to do. So if he does, I'm okay with it. But, no one right now is clear about whether he will be okayed to play physical sports like football and wrestling. Because, especially when you have it so early. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that strokes are actually the number one killer.
Yes.
In America. And that's saying something because there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And he's even in a very small percentage of people who've actually had a stroke before the age of 65. So it is dangerous, but, Tylen is a young man that, at least right now, he's showing a will to fight and do what he needs to do. I think right now his immediate plans are just being able to drive because, his situation was so severe that doctors won't allow him to drive for 6 months, at least 6 months.
Right.
And then, of course, if he has any setbacks, that time will get pushed back even further. He just got a new truck. So he's really upset about that. So he's really wanting to get back on the road. I'm not sure where football ranks up there for him right now. But, for the moment, I know his parents and the whole town of Mount Pleasant, it's a community of about 2,000 people, and everyone has been through there to see him. Almost the whole town has been through there.
I can believe that.
And it's gotten a lot of attention. I know former Carolina Panther Greg Olson was up there just, I think it was yesterday, man. Just different dignitaries and just regular plain old folks who care about one of their homeboys.
Yeah, well, and Olson's a great guy. I mean, there's just no other way to say that.
He is, and he's been through, his share of pain with a child, as you all know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm just not sure what the future holds for him as an athlete. I would just say that the number one concern right now is just 100% healing, because I'll share this with you, which I haven't shared with many people other than my inner circle. I too have had a stroke, and that's kind of why the story also hit home for me, because I can't imagine that at 16.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
and I was not aware of that.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it is. And, when you do, you have to follow those orders, because sometimes you'll get a false sense of security of,
Sure.
I feel good, I'm fine. And the one thing my doctor told me is that, listen, you have to do the exercises, you have to, use the other forms of discipline that you can, so that you don't have long-term issues.
That's right. Yep.
So yes, I certainly hope that Tyler is able to do that, and I know that he's got a community behind him that is going to be with him along the way.
My wife says I'm not a good listener, but I really am. I may question you about why you're making me do this, but I will listen. I'm taking the meds. I'm not happy about it, but I'm taking the meds. Richie, who a regular listener, works in the medical field, said even with advanced medicine, we're still learning more and more about the brain and what long-term effects a concussion can have on a person. My doctor told me the same thing, and the neurologist. They haven't scratched the surface on the brain because of how complicated it is. And when it comes to concussions and the effects of concussions, there is no further research they can do until you have passed, and they can analyze the brain after that. So that's something that they're still trying to learn, but they're nowhere close to where they need be. And I know that there's more and more precautions being taken. But like with anything, and Jamal, a lot of folks don't realize this, but you think about wrestling. There's some head contact. I wrestled when I was in high school. There's some head contact, and another one that a lot of people really don't think about because they say it's not a non-contact sport. Soccer is another one where there's a lot of concussions, more than people realize.
Oh, yes, and absolutely in wrestling. I mean, there's a reason that, and you said you wrestled?
I did in high school, I did.
Well, I'm pretty sure that you probably had some cauliflower ear. And,
yep.
There's a reason that guys wore the helmet, not the helmet,
the headgear.
But the headgear. And so absolutely, and soccer is actually a very violent sport.
Yes.
I mean, I'm glad you brought that to light, because, I'd only played like on a very kid level. But then when my son started playing in high school, I was like, man, this is kind of like football.
Yeah.
With no pads.
Yeah. Nope.
So, sports like that and lacrosse, all that, man.
Rugby is football without pads.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Chris Winkler, who's another one, Chris, a lot of years in volleyball, said lots of concussions in volleyball, believe it or not, mostly indoor, not outdoor, and it comes from falls. And going back to wrestling, a lot of times that head bounces off the mat when you're wrestling.
Yes. So, just things that, people need to be aware of and just, follow all the protection guidelines that they can. Don't worry about being tough or anything like that. Just be safe.
Let's talk a little high school football before I let you go. No one with the ousting of Mount Pleasant, Cabarrus County has been a little off in the past few years with making some runs into the playoffs.
Yeah, Cabarrus County had some really good teams actually this year. It's just that by the second round, all of them were done. I mean, I know at the 2A level, J.M. Robinson was actually expected to go far. But in that second round of the playoffs, they ran into a tough team. Same thing, of course, with Mount Pleasant, as we discussed, because to me, for my money, and it ain't much, but I tell you, boy, those Maiden Blue Devils are the best team that I've seen.
They're playing well. Be a real test
Yeah.
for them this week, though. You know, we talked about it last week. It's amazing. You just about got to get to this round where everybody's kind of even. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can look, but when you can't compare conferences and conference opponents and all those type things. And I'm sitting here looking at the list as we speak, and like in 1A in the East, the top 4 teams are still there. In the West, it's 1, 2, 4, and 6, so they kind of got it right. You look at the West 2A, you got 1, 3, 5, and 7. Reidsville, Maiden, Burns, and Monroe. Those are some pretty good football teams, and all those teams are 12-1. All the way across. You're starting to get to where you're putting 2 teams that could be 26-0, or they could be 24-2. I mean, East Lincoln, Kings Mountain, 2 13-0 teams there. So, you know, this is when it really gets tough.
Yeah, and high school football in North Carolina, I mean, it's always been good, but it's like right now, I mean, it's just flooded with so many major college prospects.
Yes.
You know, no matter how small the town or whatever. I mean, I'm in my 50s, and I know that, you know, when I was growing up in North Carolina, it was kind of a rarity to have somebody like yourself going to an ACC school or somebody going to South Carolina or whatever. But now, I declare it's almost like every other team has at least 2 or 3, 4 or 5 star recruits on the squad, and it's just made for some really entertaining football. It's made for kind of a transfer portal at a lot of places down this way,
right?
But it's really good football, and I really am enjoying the time.
You know, I'm a little surprised when you look at the 4A rounds in the West. Only one Charlotte, what I consider a Charlotte school. I don't really consider Weddington, but Huff High School is the only one that's still left. It's Grimsley versus Huff, Weddington versus AC Reynolds. I'm really surprised that, you know, the Charlotte 4A schools used to dominate the West.
They did, but, you know, not anymore. Not anymore. A lot of programs have stepped up. And speaking of Weddington, I really like them. I got a chance to see them against another Cabarrus County team, Cox Mill.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Cox Mill was our number 1 team in the county this year, and Weddington beat them like they stole something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just like it wasn't even close. And honestly, Weddington, from what I looked the other day, they've just dominated everyone in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they've had a game within 2 or 3 touchdowns in the playoffs, which is usually a rarity. Maybe you see that in the first round, but not when you get to this stage of the season, winning by double digits.
Oh yeah, you know, you look at the West because we don't really have 4A teams kind of where I'm at in our area, but when you look at the West, we still have basically in what I'd consider a 5-county area local teams left. Drawn High School, which used to be a doormat, they're 12-1, a 6 seed taking on Andrews. They're just up the street. And then in 2A, you've still got Burns, Maiden, and Monroe. Burns, been a long time since they've been in a spot that's usually been Shelby or Crest from that area. Then you get to the 3A, you've still got Kings Mountain, South Point, and East Lincoln that are left. So a lot of good football here locally.
Yeah, I mean, some entertaining things to do on Friday night. It's kind of like, take your choice of where you want to go and, see some entertaining football. And, this fall, it actually wasn't that cold. Now it's starting to be really cold now, at least for an old man like me.
Me too.
But there were some beautiful nights to watch football this fall.
Yep. Anything else going on with you, sir? I promise I won't take so long to catch up with you again.
No, I'm just trying to keep it in the middle of the fairway, man, or be able to, hit it out of the woods every once in a while, but I'm just trying not to lose any balls.
I get it. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna wrap it up. Hang on the line. I need to talk to you for just a second. I've actually got to go on up in Baltimore here in just a few minutes. I do some hits up there with the sports radio station in Baltimore, but I'm gonna wrap it up for this morning. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving, and I'll be right back with you in just a minute, Jamal. Thanks, buddy.
Sure.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me this morning. Have a great Thanksgiving. Won't be in here on Friday. Got a radio remote down in Lincoln. I'll see you again on Monday. The boys will wrap it all up on Saturday morning. And don't forget, we'll have the East Lincoln game here live on WLON. Have a great day. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. See you next week.